There we go. All right. So first thing, we'll just kind of go over who we are, where you can find us if anyone wants to find more information. So on my side, again, I'm a strength conditioning coach working in the military setting right now, working at Fort Bragg, certified strength conditioning specialist, where you can find information from me and anything about training programs, going to our blog, anything regarding training, nutrition, and sleep. You can find all of that on charlesperformanceandwellness.com. And then we have Leah. You can go ahead and kind of give your background as well.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Leah. I'm a registered dietitian. I received a bachelor's degree of science in community medical dietetics, and that includes my 1,200 hours of supervised practice. I received that at the Turbo University here in La Crosse, Wisconsin. I also have a nutrition coaching business where I help women find freedom from diets and heal their relationship with food to live their healthiest life. If you're interested in that, I do have a Facebook group called Leah Freund Nutrition Coaching. And also I have an Instagram at Leah_Marie_Freund, where I post my content as well. And you can reach me, message me on Instagram, Facebook, or join the Facebook group to get in contact with me.
All right. Yeah, me and Leah work together on providing good content for you guys. I focus more on the training aspects, and Leah provides really good content on the nutrition side of it. So together with a certified strength conditioning specialist and a registered dietitian, right, we provide really great information for you guys to help you train, help you recover, help you sleep better, help you eat better, to make you, whether it's being a better athlete, better military soldier, or just a regular general population, just trying to be healthy or start on your fitness journey. We have all that information for you. Check us out. Make sure you reach out to us. So we'll talk about recovery today. So our goals that we're going to accomplish today is we're going to identify overtraining symptoms, what they are, how you identify them, and what you do if you come to that case. So we're going to talk about functional overreaching, non-functional overreaching, overtraining, and then we'll talk about common signs in women in particular. We'll also talk about rhabdomyolysis. And then we'll also talk about how to recover from the training. So how to have proper sleep, proper nutrition guidelines that Leah will talk about. Then I'll talk about kind of like workout structures and talk about workout volume to make sure you're getting the optimal training and also recovering enough from that. So we'll go ahead and get right into it. So we're going to talk about overtraining terms and symptoms, just so we can identify what these are, so you know what you're feeling when you see this stuff. So we'll start with functional overreaching. So what that is the definition of it is it's increased training leading to a temporary performance decrement with improved performance after rest. Now, this is what I kind of call like the good kind of soreness. This is where like, yep, you're a little sore, but you still function the next following day. That's what I kind of define as functional overreaching, is that you're still able to function as a human being. You're still able to go to work. You're still able to hit the gym the next day and still be able to train. You're still able to function as a human being, and that's important, right? Because the performance decrement here is it only takes a couple days, maybe up to a week or two to recover from the training, depending on how many days you're training and how intense it is and what level of your background of training with weight training, running, rowing, whatever your background is, right? And the outcome of that type of overreaching is that it's a positive thing. That's a good thing because you're able to adapt to it, which means you're going to get stronger, get faster. If you're trying to work on your body weight, you're able to burn fat, build muscle. If you're working on aerobic capacity, being able to run farther or bike farther. If you're like a triathlete, swimming as well. This is the kind of the soreness that you want to look for. You're sore, but you're still able to function. Now, if you go down further down the line, we get to non-functional overreaching. It's just pretty much like another level of that functional overreaching. It just takes it to another level. And what it essentially means is now you're so sore that you're not able to function. Means that you have a very intense training that leads to longer performance decrement, meaning like you're not able to do as much weights. If you're in the weight room, you're not able to run as far as fast as you used to, right? You're not able to fully recover after rest. It may also cause some increased psychologic and neuroendocrinologic symptoms, just meaning
that word.
Yeah, it's a big word. But the short term is that things can happen. So psychologically, it could affect you because you're not able to train as hard because your body just feels really broken down. So again, a good way to think about it is like, in my personal experience, it's like you go to do a workout and it's like you are struggling to walk down the stairs, like a very basic thing that you do in everyday life. if you're like struggling to do the most basic things, like going up and down the stairs, if that's like a struggle for you, that's more of a non-functional, because you're not functioning enough to be able to get up and down something as simple as stairs, right? And the performance decrement on this is that it takes weeks to months. That's how much it takes to, or how long that affects you, is a couple weeks to a couple months. It's very intense. It's very hard to recover from. And what the point of it is that this particular thing, because it takes so long for you to recover, in this case, weeks to months, you're losing valuable time training, what could have helped you improve. And that's the key thing, right? So like, can you recover from this? Absolutely. But the problem is you're putting yourself so far behind that by the time you recover from it, you've lost so much potential to do so much more. So it's kind of like taking like 2 steps forward, but you're taking 3 steps back, right? So that's kind of that's an overview of non-functional. Now the extreme version is what we just simply call overtraining. This is a consistent with extreme non-functional overreaching. So it's just non-functional overreaching, just continuing to go. You're still training hard. You're just continuing to not like give yourself time to recover from the workouts, right? This leads to super long-term performance decrement. This can be upwards of 2 months. There's some more severe things that can happen. This can happen with your physiology, your neurological thing, your endocrine system, your hormonal system can be thrown off balance. Your immune system is also compromised. So a really easy way to tell is if you're getting sick a lot more often, that's a really huge tell that like from your hard training, your immune system is being suppressed from it. And then just a lot of other things. So it's essentially you're much easier to get sick. And this overtraining is very serious. It can take months to recover from something like this. So it's very negative to get to this kind of level, because you're taking something that's so extreme that you're affecting your physiology and your body. You're getting sick more often. So not only you're just like losing potential times for training and getting adaptions, you're potentially harming yourself internally, and that can cause some permanent things that could happen. And if you're an athlete, it could be a potential ending of your athletic career. So again, if you're getting sick all the time, if your hormonal system is off, so if you see an endocrinologist and they're saying your hormones levels are not where they're supposed to be, that could be a sign of overtraining. So that's kind of the overview of the functional, non-functional, and the overtraining syndromes, I should say. Right, and then specifically, Leah will talk about now going into specifically in women.
Okay, I just want to clarify, because that was a lot of information to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So like functional overreaching, like if you are sore, like just for 1 day after your workout, that is normal?
Yes, that's totally normal. And the other thing you bring up, that's a good point, is the more novice you are, the more you're going to be sore, the more times you train. So like if you're someone that's been training for a year, 2 years, like it's going to take a lot more effort for you to get to that kind of level of soreness again, just because your body's adapted to that. So what I kind of tell people is if you're brand new to training, the first 2 weeks are probably going to suck. And that's where kind of people tend to kind of lose that motivation, because they're sore all the time. They feel like garbage. But that's kind of the sweet spot, because right after that 2 week time, their body adapts. And then it's like, oh, now it becomes so much easier because you're learning how to train. Your body's adapted to it. So if I were to give a message to newbies, it's like, just stick it out, you know, for at least a month. And then you'll kind of see like, okay, you're not going to feel terrible all the time. Like you'll feel a little sore. You'll feel like, yeah, I did something, but you're, like I said, you're still able to function the next day. So that's a great question.
Okay, yeah, I like to hear about that 2 week thing. I think that's a really good message to those newbies, because yeah, if you're hearing that they're like, oh, I'm sore after my workout every time, like, oh my gosh.
It's not always like that. And I did that at the high school level. Someone's like, is it always going to be like this? I said, no, like you'll be fine. Like just give it some time. And sure enough, they're like, okay, I see what you're talking about. Like you just have to suck it up for a little bit and then it's fine.
Awesome. Good. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. So some common signs of overtraining and or underfeeling. So here we are kind of bringing together, you know, the training aspect and the nutrition aspect of you training and working out. Some common signs, like Ben mentioned, reoccurring injuries, kind of getting sick more often because you're, you know, overtraining. You're not fueling your body properly to give it the nutrients that your immune system needs. So your immune system is down, so you'll get sick more often. Inability to train at the level you usually do. Ben was kind of talking about that, like you're not able to run as far as you're used to. You're kind of actually progressing backwards instead of forward. You notice a change in your skin, hair, and nails. That's really going to be a underfueling issue. Having irregular menstrual cycles or loss of menstruation, this is not normal. It tends to be like if you're, especially when you're an athlete and you're like, oh yeah, that's normal. That's not normal. Okay. Nope. So just want to make that very clear that, that is a potential sign of overtraining and or underfueling. Another sign is poor digestion. If you have constant constipation and or diarrhea issues, that could be related to underfueling and overtraining. Low energy, persistent fatigue, likely related more to the underfueling aspects because you're not giving your body its nutrients, calories, protein that it needs to function and recover from your training that you're putting your body through. And then increase irritability and or anger, related to the underfueling, overtraining. You're messing up with your hormones. Messed up hormones can change your, mood and your temperament, and not feeding your body. We all know about being hangry. That kind of lies into that. Yeah. So this is some other common symptoms that you might notice day to day on a more layman's term.
Yeah, very good stuff. Yeah, the irregular menstrual cycles is definitely a big thing. Like you said, that's not normal. Yeah. Yeah, great stuff there. Really appreciate kind of going into the details for that, because for women, like training is always slightly a little bit different in how it affects them compared to men. So that is some really good key things I think that people should definitely take away, that yes, it's slightly different and they should definitely keep note of, like, these are normal, these are not normal. So all right, so we'll talk about Rhabdo. I'm trying to remember how to say this. Rhabdo, I call it Rhabdo. We'll just call it Rhabdo.
Yep, Rhabdo.
yeah, no one really knows how to say it, but that's okay. So we call it Rhabdo, and we're going to talk about it because the big thing is that this is kind of part of the thing with the non-functional overreaching and the overtraining. This is one of the things that could potentially happen. It is a life-threatening thing, so I wanted to make sure people understood that, like, if the symptoms of these are that you're having, this is a very serious condition. You do need to go to a hospital. So we'll go over kind of what this is. So Rhabdo is essentially what's happening is what it feels like is you're having severe muscle cramps that you've never really ever felt before. They feel way more severe than you ever expected. The really key thing that you'll find really quickly is that your urine is very dark. And I mean like abnormally dark. You're like, holy cow, this is darker than I've ever seen in my life. You're just like, it scares you a little bit, right? And then the other symptoms, you feel very weak, you're very tired, and that's obvious because you've overtrained, your body is just super fatigued, right? You're just not able to like be able to do your job, you're not able to do your workout routine, right? Those are kind of a couple things to look at. Now, the reason why Rhabdo is such a big deal is what happens is when, in this quote here I have at the bottom, when people overstress their muscles, they are at risk for the muscle tissue to break down. And that's what's happening. You're training so hard that your body is breaking down the muscle tissue, and that it gets into the bloodstream. It releases a thing called myoglobin. You don't need to remember that, but just understand that in the muscle that's getting through the bloodstream that's been broken down, that is very toxic to your kidneys. And because of that, it can lead to kidney damage and kidney failure. And that's why it's fatal, right? So essentially what's happening is you're training so hard because normally when you train, yes, there are some micro tears that happen to the muscle. That's the stress that you're providing to that muscle. And what happens is your body adapts to it by recovering those muscle tears and then adding an extra layer on top to protect it. And that adds an adaptation, which means you have to do more work to bring that down again, build up, and you just repeat that process, right? But if you do it too hard, you're breaking your muscles down so much that it's getting into your bloodstream, clogging up your kidneys, it's becoming toxic, and that can become a severe thing, right? So clarifying, if this is the kind of symptoms that you or you know someone that's going through this, get them to a hospital right away. They need to get IVs in, they need to get fluids in to kind of keep the kidneys from getting clogged up and getting toxic and potentially being a fatal thing. So that is kind of talking about and some of the things that could happen with overtraining, right? So next thing we'll talk about specifically. So in this example we talked about here, so this is kind of what a functional overreaching looks like, right? You have your training stimulus here. So let's say this is Monday, you have your workout, right? And you have your fatigue, that's your normal soreness, that's to be expected to some level, right? And then you recover, and that's what we're specifically talking about is how to do this part, because if you guys were on our last video, we talked a lot about this kind of stuff, how to do the workout structure, how to do things like that. But a lot of people really miss out on the recovery stuff, and that's why we're talking about it today, right? So you recover from it, and then you provide an adaptation. So now you're slightly higher than you were before. And you just rinse and repeat this process until you get to either your desired body weight or your desired strength level or your desired aerobic fitness if you're doing running or cardio with biking, ellipticals, treadmill, swimming, what have you, right? So the big thing is that the overview that we'll talk about today is making sure we talk about sleep, making sure you're getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night, right? And then you need to allow adequate recovery time for the specific muscle groups, right? Like I have people that want to train every single day. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You just have to make sure you're relying on that muscle group. So let's just take like your hamstrings, for example, right? Like you don't want to do like a deadlift day and then follow it up the next day with another hamstring intense thing like sprinting or some RDLs or whatever that, or leg curls, for example, right? Give them time to recover so they have time to adapt. This process from B to E here, that takes time, right? You can't rush this. Your body will adapt it at its own pace. So it's important that you understand that give your body time to recover. The third thing that Leah will specifically go over today is how to fuel your body to provide yourself with adequate carbs, fats, and proteins. And we're going to start breaking this down to each thing. So the first thing we'll talk about is the sleep. Sleep is super very underrated. You know, the amount of studies that I've seen, or like, for example, one of my mentors during his doctorate, when he was getting his doctorate degree, he did a study on himself on his thesis, about sleep. And he, from what he's read, and he's like, dude, it is a very serious thing. Like sleep helps you in so many areas, not just on, you know, your performance, but like your health and everything. So the key thing is get your 7 to 8 hours of sleep. That is the short answer to this question. If you're able to do that, you're going to be great, right? And then some key points that kind of help with that to make things a better quality of sleep, so you're not tossing and turning every night, is try to go to bed at the same time every night. What you're doing is you're creating a natural rhythm, because what's happening is your body will start to get tired. The melatonin will start to kick in, and that way you'll feel more likely to fall asleep, right? And then you also want to be able to get up at the same time as well, as much as possible. That's the same thing. You're creating that rhythm. Your body will naturally want to wake up to a point that you'll be able to wake up without an alarm. It is possible, believe it or not. It is possible. I had an old teacher in high school that was able to do that. She was able to wake up at 6:30 every morning without needing an alarm, and she just got herself into a rhythm and able to continue to do that.
That's my dad. I find it crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy, and it's very hard. You have to be very dedicated, very consistent. And I preach that all the time. If you watch our last video, same thing, consistency, right? Sleeping, nutrition, the training, it's all about consistency. You got to do it on a regular basis. The other couple things we'll talk about is putting the screens down. When you have your phone, or if you're on your computer, your laptop, you're processing information when you're looking through that stuff. Like if you're on TikTok, you're scrolling all the time. There's a lot of information you're putting onto your brain that has to interpret the information, and it's staying active, right? And obviously the blue light from that also affects it as well. So it's really important. Put the screen down. You know, usually I say about 30 minutes before you go to bed, so your brain has time to decompress, right? The other thing you can do that I've done a couple of times, that I have another mentor, this is a different mentor that I had. He tells me that he can fall asleep within 3 deep breaths. He takes 3 deep inhales and then through his belly, and we'll go through this in a second, and he's able to just pass right out. Like he's got himself trained in such a way to get himself to slow his heart rate down and just like fall asleep. Whether how true that really is, I think we understand the point that he's able to slow his heart rate down. That's the key thing. So belly breathing, that's what we're talking about, is when you lay down, taking really long inhales through your nose, long exhales through your mouth. And what you're doing is you're just trying to relax, right? So these full inhales, breathe through your belly, doing like 3 to 5 reps for 2 to 3 sets. So when I'm saying 3 to 5 reps, I mean 3 to 5 breaths. So in through the nose and out through your mouth. And you're just trying to slow your heart rate down. You're trying to get your body to relax, right? And if you do that enough and you train your body enough, you could be like my mentor that I'm talking about, who's able to fall asleep a lot faster than regular people. It's quite impressive. I mean, I'm hoping I can get to that point one of these times. The other thing we talk about is progressive muscle relaxation. So you can't shut your mind off. And this is something on Leah here. So if you want to kind of go over on that, that'd be great.
Yeah. So I've definitely talked in my Facebook group how important sleep is. And one of the days I had talked about this progressive muscle relaxation. You can just YouTube this, and it's just kind of a video for you to turn on, and it will talk you through relaxing from head to toe. So if you're somebody who like goes to bed and your mind or your thoughts are just like, oh, I gotta do this tomorrow and this, and oh shoot, I forgot to do that. Like, this will be a good tool for you to, just YouTube this, put it on. It's a good way to shut your mind off and start to relax. One thing I didn't, put in the bullet points here is I just want to mention quickly that sometimes, people will have some alcohol before bedtime because they say that relaxes them. Unfortunately, yes, it gets you into fall asleep quicker, but it really affects that deep sleep and the REM sleep levels that really help to recharge and energize you. So being cautious of how much alcohol you have before bedtime. If you want more information on that, that is in my Facebook group as well.
Yeah, well, thank you for providing that resource. And speaking of the alcohol, I will definitely agree to that. If I have an old fashioned or something, it's I might fall asleep quicker, but I always feel the next day, I'm like, yeah, I slept like crap.
Yeah.
So I can definitely attest to that. So yeah, people think that it helps, but I will attest to say, no, it does not help. The other thing we'll talk, this is obviously not on the slide either, but alcohol also can reduce your protein synthesis when it comes to recovering muscle repair. That's what protein synthesis is that your body takes the protein that you're ingesting and turns that into muscle, adds it to repair the broken tissues and adds extra layers. That's protein synthesis. Drinking alcohol can reduce that. So that could be a reason why you're not able to adapt, is because your body's not able to process that protein because you're drinking the alcohol, which is reducing that. So great stuff there. Right, and then I'll talk about muscle groups here, and then we'll talk with Leah about nutrition. All right, so keeping the same picture I have here, always keeping this in the back of your mind, right? We talked about sleep. The big thing as well is talking about how to structure your training so that you're able to allow your body to recover, right? If you were on our last video, we went into much more detail on that. If you guys watch that video, we can get, I went very specific on about how to structure your workouts on that. So definitely check that out. If you haven't seen it yet, I'll kind of give you a brief overview of what we talked about. The big thing we talked about is training your muscle groups 2 to 3 times per week. That's usually the most for the general population, I say. And even for my athletes and for my soldiers, like with my current soldiers right now, we weight train specifically only twice a week, right? The rest of the time, they're either going out doing their rucking, where they're wearing their backpacks and all that and going on hikes and stuff like that, going out on trails, they're going on runs, they're doing sprints, doing whatever, right? There's a lot of things that make up a soldier. There's also a lot of things on the athlete side of it, things that make up an athlete. They have to do a lot of different things, right? So it's important that you give your body the time to recover from those things so they can continue to adapt. So the general rule of thumb I tell people is allow at least a day of rest 24 hours before, or 48 hours, I should say, before you train that muscle group again. Well, if you're doing something that's very leg focused, like running, squatting, deadlifting, any biking, for example, as well, anything like that, usually, if you do that on a Monday, you should probably wait till Wednesday before you decide to do that again. Just so you have that Tuesday to, if we look in this thing here, so this fatigue, this kind of area, this is Monday, this is Tuesday, this is Wednesday, somewhere in here, right? So it's really important to allow your body that time to recover. And so what you can do is, like, if you're someone that wants to train like 5 days a week, that's totally fine. So like you can do like an upper lower split if you want, or you can do like very minimal training and do like total body 3 days a week. So that way you can do 3 times a week. There's a couple of different ways you can do it, but the key thing is allow your body time to recover between that. So a Monday, Wednesday, Friday split works really good. I usually prefer that more than anything. If it's a 2-day, a Tuesday, Thursday type split is great, or a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or what have you, those kind of examples. The key thing of why that's so important, it's about the volume of the training. That's what causes the fatigue, right? So understand that the more volume that you're doing, whether it's more distance that you run or the amount of reps that you're doing in something, the more volume that you're doing, the more fatiguing it's going to be, which means that this is going to dip farther down. The farther this dips down, the longer it's going to take for this to recover, right? That's why doing it like every other day at least allows you to shorten this to recover this faster, right? So understand more volume equals more fatigue, right? And the more fatigue equals more time to recover. And understand the volume, again, it could be sets, it could be reps, it could be the distance that you travel, the time that you do something, whether it's circuits or if you're going out for a 20-minute run, right? The volume that you're doing will affect how deep this curve is. So keep that in mind, that if you're having a hard time recovering from the workouts, it might be because your volume is just simply too high that you can't recover from it yet. So at some point you might be able to adapt to it, but right now this dip is too far down for you to recover from, right? So keep that in mind. Whoop, sorry. And then the last thing we'll talk about before we go through nutrition is understand that for me personally, I treat fatigue as the enemy. What I mean by that is that fatigue is a byproduct of training, right? When you train, whether it's running, biking, or any kind of exercise that you can think of, right? Fatigue normally is going to come with it in some shape or form, whether it's because you're affecting your heart and you're having to pump more blood from the aerobic system to work, or it's the muscles themselves, or it might be a joint thing that might be happening. Fatigue is bound to happen to some shape or form, but make it very clear that fatigue is never the goal, right? And this is one of the hurdles for me as a strength coach that I have a hard time with my, in the military setting, we have a hard time with a lot of people who are very old school that want to just train hard till you puke and puke your guts out and everything like that, till you fall over, right? They think that because you're heavy breathing, because you're like falling to the ground and just trying to catch your breath, things like that, they think that you're improving, but what you're doing is that you're just putting yourself so far down this that it's going to take so long to recover. And we talked about the functional, non-functional. You're going to get to a point where you're in the non-functional, and now we're waiting 2-3 days for you to recover from that. And that's 2 or 3 days that we could have used for training, right? So understand that fatigue is never the goal. It's just a part of training. It's there, but never the goal, right? Kind of the quote I have on here that I tell people is that any fool can make another fool tired. Just because you're tired does not mean you got better, right? It's very clear that a structured program should have specific goals in mind, and fatigue is going to be a part of it, but it's never going to be the goal. Now, that's kind of the overview on the muscle group training. Again, if you want more specific things on workout structures about these muscle groups and all that, check out our last video on our Facebook page, or reach out to me. I can definitely send you a link to that as well. Moving on to our next thing, Leo is going to go over how to recover via nutrition.
All right, thanks, Ben. Okay, so the next part of recovery is nutrition. Think of it as, we'll talk about refueling, repairing, and rehydrating. We have 3 macronutrients that we consume, which is protein, fat, and carbs. Today we'll be focusing mostly on carbs and protein. Fat, we need to consume fat in our diet, but doesn't really play a role in that recovery process. I would just say, use caution after workout, not eating too high of fat after a workout, as that can slow down the absorption of the carbohydrates and the protein and slow the process for it to recover your muscles. And it could cause some GI upset if you have too much fat after a workout, but no specific recommendations other than that. So carbohydrates, a lot of fear around carbohydrates out there. These are necessary to consume after training and working those muscles, because when you are working your muscles, we use a store called glycogen, and that is the fuel that is used during your workout. So carbohydrates is what that comes from. So we need to eat carbohydrates after our workout to replete these glycogen stores. And then protein helps repair your muscles. And like Ben said earlier, when you are working your muscles, you are literally tearing your muscles. So we need to eat protein, which breaks down to amino acids, and these amino acids will repair our muscles. So what happens is, if you're not, eating the carbohydrates to replete the glycogen stores, the protein you're consuming will go towards repleting the glycogen stores instead of repairing your muscle. So you need to include those carbohydrates so that when you eat the protein, it's going to what it should be going to. Just some examples of some quick absorbing carb sources to have after your workout is potatoes, white potatoes or sweet potatoes, chocolate milk, oatmeal, rice, pasta, bread, and fruit. And the bread can be white bread or wheat bread. Some examples of protein sources that will be readily absorbed, protein powder, whether that be whey protein, or if you are somebody who likes to choose like a vegan or a non a vegan or a vegetarian one, those are good too. Just be mindful that they include all of the amino acids, so just keep an eye out for that. If you want more information on that, please reach out. I can get you in the right direction if you are somebody who likes to go towards a vegetarian protein powder. We just got to make sure that you're getting all of the amino acids to help with that repair process. Eggs, great protein source. Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, chicken, salmon, tuna. Protein bars for those days that you're on the go. So how much do you need of these foods? So here's the thing. Nutrition is not black and white, unfortunately. It's a lot of gray area. So I can't give you just like, here, this is what you need. I can give you some general guidance, but I can't guarantee this is what you need. Nutrition is a personalized area of science. So in general, just as a general person, you need at least 0.8 grams of kilogram daily. And that's just if you are a normal person, not necessarily even working out. So for example, if you're 160 pounds, to get to kilograms, you divide that by 2.2. So if you're 160 pounds, that would equate to about 73 kilograms. And then you would times that by the 0.8. And that gives you to have about 58 grams to 73 grams of protein. So that's if you're just a normal person, don't work out, don't really strain your muscles as much as normal. And then if you're somebody who has strength training, if you're an athlete, if you're a runner, we're going to bump up that protein to a range of 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram. And even as you can see, that range is pretty, wide. The science is varying from all over the place. So what most common, we'll just put that range of 1.6 to 2.2. So those numbers can get very confusing and everything. So just in general, I would say, about 20 to 40 grams of protein after a workout, and then pair that with 1 to 2 carbohydrate-rich food sources. On our next slide, we have some examples of snacks and post-workout meals that are, paired to kind of get you to that 20 to 40 grams of protein and then having some adequate carbohydrates in there. So we'll leave this up here for a quick second for that so that you can screenshot some of these ideas. And if you are somebody that enjoys protein shakes, I like to just mention that you do need to have a carbohydrate with that protein shake. Bananas are always, easy to carry with to the gym. So that's always a good combo there. Chocolate milk is also a good one. It has a good balance of the carbohydrates, the protein, and the fat. And that's just to get you, to your next meal. And then some meal ideas as well. You got some breakfast examples if you're somebody who likes to work out in the morning, and then some more lunch or dinner ideas as well. So go ahead, screenshot those, save those for some ideas. And next we'll talk about the timing of our nutrition.
Yeah, and before we start, I wanted to add one more thing to it. Yeah. So I really liked we talked about how nutrition is not black and white, right? There's a lot of gray area. And what I wanted to add on to that is I see a lot of times in my perspective is that sometimes people will say, hey, this is what I did. This is what you should try too. With, and people should kind of take that with a grain of salt. It might have worked great for your friend or family member, whoever, or someone you're trying to sell you something. That's great. I'm happy for them, but also understand that that may not work for you individually, right? Like you said, it's very individual. How your body functions may not be quite the same as how their body functions. Your medical history, your genetics, there's so many things that go into it. So, when people try to give you or trying to sell you on something, or someone who's not a registered dietitian is like trying to tell you to do something, say, hey, this keto thing worked really great for me, you should do this too, or I did intermittent fasting. It's like, okay, this might work great for you because your body is really good with that, but like for other people, that just may not work.
Right.
So definitely, yeah, that gray area is definitely a huge thing. So that's why I tell people, like, go talk to a registered dietitian. They can specialize that for you to make sure like you're getting what you need so that you know that you can be happy and healthy. So we can move on to our next slide here. Go ahead and go for it.
Yeah. So the general population, you may have heard like, oh, you need to eat within, 30 minutes or within a certain window. For a general population, someone who's just going to the gym, 3 to 4 or 5 times a week, that timing is not, super critical. Obviously, I would recommend to ideally, within 2 hours of working out to eat something, just to, get that fuel back to your muscles as soon as possible. And, it really depends on like, when did you eat before you worked out as well? Because if you ate a meal 1 hour before your workout, you definitely will probably be okay waiting till 2 hours later if you're not able to get something right away. But if you ate, 3 or 4 hours before your workout, you might want to eat a little bit sooner because you definitely repleted a lot more of those glycogen stores if you ate 3 to 4 hours before your workout. So in general, don't worry about the timing too much. Just try to eat as soon as you can to do it. What's really going to help your recovery process is your whole day. It's not just what you eat right after that workout. It's your whole day, every day. So if there's one thing you want to focus on is making sure you're hitting these protein goals, especially if you're an athlete or strength training or trying to bulk up for a competition, hitting those protein goals will be your main focus. And it's easier to split that up between 3 to 4 meals. Don't try to get all of your, 160 grams of protein in one meal. Like, that's not gonna benefit it. You need to have it evenly dispersed as much as possible throughout the whole day. And another thing with your nutrition and working out, if fat loss is your goal, remember that a calorie deficit is needed. So that also plays a role in the timing and what you're going to have for your workout snack or what you're going to have for your workout meal and how you're going to get this protein in. Because yes, you may, I'm getting all this protein, but I'm not seeing my fat loss. Well, you're eating proteins, you're hitting the protein goal, but you're way over on your calorie needs to have that fat loss that you're aiming for. So working with a dietitian can help you get a personalized plan. I go for more of the kind of the intuitive side of things for nutrition. I'm more of looking at the whole picture and being like, here's what you can have. I'm not on the macros. That's not my style. If you are somebody who likes to focus on macros and really focus on those numbers, I do have a friend that she's a dietitian as well and works with the macronutrients. So if you are looking to, really focus on your nutrition and do the macros, please reach out to me and I will refer you out to her. She's a great resource as well. But if you're more of like, I'm just, working out to, move my body more, but not sure if I'm fueling my body properly to, help it do what I want it to do, I would probably be the dietitian for you to work with. We kind of do more of the intuitive process, learning about how you feel, how food makes you feel. And then you'll learn the basics of nutrition so that you can make educated choices for your food based on what your body needs and what you want. So a combination of meeting between those two. So like I said, nutrition is not black and white. It's a very gray area. Recommend, reaching out to a dietitian like myself or my friend who focuses more on the macronutrients plan. So please reach out. We are here to support you. We love to help you. And our plans are personalized to you. They're not cookie cutter.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. And one of the things that kind of made me think about was you're talking about the fat loss thing. I've been asked a couple questions, both from athletes and in the military multiple times. They're like, is it possible to be able to burn the fat and build the muscle? I'd be curious to kind of hear what like your side of it is.
So it's hard. Like you kind of got to choose one. Like you can do both, but it's definitely going to take a lot longer on both sides of it. So if you're going to do that, you're kind of you're going to be moving very little bit. So you kind of want to focus on one, because if you want to really focus on the fat loss, you're going to have more of that calorie deficit. You can still work out, but you're not going to see those muscle gains as much. Now, once you do your fat loss and you want to start, gaining muscles, or gaining more muscle mass, I should say, then we kind of revert and we do like a reverse diet where you gradually add back in calories so that you are able to gain that muscle mass, because you do need a little surplus of calories to build these muscles. So yes, It's very hard to do both at the same time.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's like
build
one's
muscle
deficit, one you got to go up. So like you're gonna balance itself out. Yeah. So that's why I get asked all the time, and that's what you say is what I tell them. I said that's very hard to do. Can it be done? I'm sure it can be, but like it's mostly like, again, like a lot of protein. But again, like what you said is exactly how I did it. So I feel really good about myself that I'm giving the right information.
Good.
That I tell them, I said, do one thing at a time. Do one or the other. My other question, kind of delving into that, is there a difference really on focusing on building muscle first and then burning the fat, or is it better to go burning the fat first and building muscle, or is it really kind of half one, the other?
Well, I guess it depends on the person and how much fat they have to lose. It depends what their goals are. Ideally, I would think it would be best for you to lose the fat and then go back up to gain the muscle, because if you would go to build the muscle first, you have to go back into a calorie deficit and you potentially could lose some of that muscle that you gained. So you did all that hard work kind of for nothing, and you're just going to kind of lose it because you have to have that calorie deficit. You might not be able to get the protein that you technically really need because you're trying to be in this calorie deficit to lose the fat. So I would probably suggest, doing that fat loss goal first. And like I said, it really depends on the person and how much fat they really do need to lose, because somebody with a higher body fat percent could, do the cutting and gaining at the same time because they have a little bit more, and that calorie deficit wouldn't have to be as drastic as somebody else who has very little fat to, lose, but still wants to lose a little bit more.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Thinking about to gain muscle, you need to be calorie surplus, and that if you go into a deficit, you potentially could lose that muscle. So that's a really great point you made there. So thank you for answering that.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for asking.
Are you done with this slide?
Yes, I am.
All right, we'll go ahead and move on to the next one. We'll talk about hydration.
Yes. So, and then next we have to rehydrate. So you got the 3 R's, with rehydrate being the last one. It's important to drink water before, after, and during. Don't have an exact number for this either, because each person will sweat differently than from me to you to Ben. It's all different, but in general, I would say at least probably 2 cups to 16 ounces post-workout. You may need more if you're, somebody who sweats a lot. And this kind of brings me to the point of, depending on the intensity of your workout, you may need an electrolyte drink. But it's not usually necessary. It's definitely something that's being marketed quite often right now, is all those electrolyte drink mixes. But like I said, they're not usually necessary. You may need it if you are, exercising outside in hot heat during the summer months, or if you're somewhere that's always warm, you might need it there. If you have a high to moderate amount of sweat, or if you exercise more than 75 minutes at a time, that might be something for you to consider. But if you're only going to the gym for your, 30 to 40 minutes and, you barely break a sweat, you probably don't need the, electrolyte drink. But if it's something that, I'm a very big person on the habit building. So if you are somebody that I get to go work out and then I get to have my, electrolyte drink because I genuinely like it, continue to do it. It's your money. You can decide what you want to do with your money. If that helps you get to the gym, by all means, continue to do that. But I just want to point out that the electrolyte drinks are not necessary for majority of us that are going to the gym.
Yeah. And one thing I'm kind of getting the theme of is the people who are watching this right now, as you kind of notice as we go through this stuff, we talked, as we said, nothing is black and white. There's so much gray area, and that's, and if you're getting frustrated, it's like, we're not giving you the exact answers. The real experts are going to say, it depends. It's always going to depend on you as an individual. So like we talked about the water, we talked about the nutrition, the protein range is so wide. the workout structures are so wide, right? Or how I do training with one group of people versus how I train middle schoolers from military to middle school is very, very different, right? It always depends, right? So the point I'm making is like, be very careful. People will try to give you a defined, like black and white answer. You're going to get very mixed results on that most of the time, right? This is why it's important to talk to a certified strength conditioning specialist or a certified personal trainer regarding the training, and talking to a registered dietitian about the nutrition thing, because there's so many factors that go into it that it's always so hard to give you an exact thing. And we're never really going to give you that. And that's not really what our goal is. We just want you to identify these things, understand these ranges. And it's up to you as the individual to decide, okay, where do I fit in this gray area, right? So I just want to kind of point that out, that, yeah, things are always going to be on a spectrum, and you got to have to understand where do you fit on that fits for you.
Yeah, and it is honestly trial and error. Even when I work with people, we'll start at, what, most common thing is, and, it is a trial and error. Like, you kind of take, the science, and then you take yourself, your body, and you try to, find it where it works. And it is a trial and error. But it's always nice to have that support with you when you're trying these things out, so you don't get frustrated or confused and just kind of give up. Having that support will really help you get through that process and be able to finally find, that sweet spot for you.
Yes, and coming from personal experience when coming to making the training programs, like there was, I forgot to talk about it earlier in the slide, but I'll talk about it now. But like my time going through like non-functional soreness and / overtraining, I think I was a first year in grad school, and we were in like a barbell club. So like we're all like doing the same program together. And I don't know if the people watching, but there's a program called Westside Barbell. It's based off of a guy named Louis Simmons. We call him the godfather of strength training. Understand that most of his programs are very much for the type of people who take steroids, steroids or anabolic things. So a regular human being can't handle that kind of stuff. And we got to about, I think it was week 10, 11, and 12 was like kind of the hard part of the program. Like I was doing good up to the first 8 weeks, I was doing fine. The last out of the 16-week or 15-week program, I was on like the last 3 weeks of it. And part of me doesn't even want to tell you what exactly I did, so people don't try to do it. But essentially, it was essentially squatting, very heavy weight with a lot of volume. We're talking like 80 to 85 to 90% of my 1 rep max, going like 30 to, I think it was like 20 to 30 total reps at that high of weight. It was like 10 sets of 3 at 80% for 1 week, and then it was 15 sets of 2 at 85%, and then the last week, which really put me over the edge, was 20 sets of 1 at 90% of my max. So just telling you guys that, did not do that, because I was on ibuprofen and Tylenol for 2 straight days. When I train, like usually, yes, my muscles feel sore and all that kind of thing. That was the very first time, and I realized I understood what non-functional and overtraining meant when my joints were sore. Like, I understand some people, like when they're sore, their joints do get sore. This was the first time in my entire like working out life that like my elbows, my back, my hips, my knees, everything hurt. It was like worst experience I ever felt in my life. And I only got through the first 2 days of training of that week, and I couldn't train the rest of the week. It took me till the following Monday to kind of like get back into those things. So that stuff can happen. And this is like, again, you don't really know until you try. Sometimes you have to break a few eggs to make an omelet. But that's why what's nice about me is like, I've done this kind of stuff, so I know that where the limit is, so that you, the individual, if you're training with me, know that like, yeah, I'm never going to get you to that level because I've done it myself. It doesn't work, so yeah, overtraining is definitely a real thing. That's what it felt like for me. And I highly 10 out of 10 would not recommend. It is straight up not a good time. And again, as we talked about, that was a Monday and Tuesday. I did that for both squat and for bench press. And then for the last 3 or 4 days, I couldn't train. So that was 3 or 4 days of training that I could have used up, and I couldn't because the training was too difficult. I couldn't recover from it. It didn't work. So therefore, was not the best program for me specifically, because I'm a person that doesn't take anabolic steroids. Not judging any people that do, right? Because we will do, and I don't judge them. That's their choice to do that, right? But their type of programs are much different from that. So just kind of, obviously we're kind of on a tangent, but the big difference is people who take anabolic steroids or any kind of things like that, they're able to recover a lot better. That's why the drugs work, is you're able to recover a lot better and handle higher volumes of training compared to someone who's not doing anabolic steroids. So kind of a little lesson on that is that's the big difference, is that they can handle more volume and they recover better. Hence why they improve a lot faster. Hence why people don't want you doing that, because it's a huge advantage. So we'll move on to our next slide. So we'll kind of give you a summation of what we were kind of talking about. So this is a good transition here. So understand that when I'm writing a workout, or if you're an individual that's doing a workout, every single workout that you do should always be 100% doable, no hesitation. There should never be a doubt in the back of your mind if you're looking at a squat and say, oh, I don't know if I can lift this weight today. If that is the case, you need to adjust your training plan. Or if you're running and say, oh, I don't know if I can run 10 miles today, I don't think that's going to happen. Or I might be able to do it, but I'm going to feel sore for quite a while. That to me is like, that's too much, right? You might be able to get to that point later on in your training, but at the particular moment, if you're not 100% confident in it, it's too much, right? It should always be 100% doable. And I got that specifically from Ed Cohn. If you don't know who that is, he is a older power lifter from back in the day. I believe he was up in the 70s, I think it was. He's a very famous power lifter, and that was his biggest thing, is that when he did his training from start to finish, from the first week to the week right before his competition, he wrote everything down, and he only did it on stuff he was 100% confident that he could do, right? What that did is allowed him to be able to know that he could recover from the workout and be able to keep training, not injure himself, and perform. And he was one of the few people that can, like, his total between a squat, bench, and deadlift was over 1,000 pounds. I think his squat was over 1,000 pounds, if I'm not being mistaken. I think his total, if I take that back, was probably like 2,000 or 2,500. It was an astronomical amount. So that's kind of where I got them from. Everything should be 100% doable. So you're asking yourself, really, when you do a workout, you're asking yourself, can I recover from this within a reasonable amount of time so I can continue to keep training? And understand that there are going to be times, kind of like what I talked about in my personal story, there might be times you're going to overdo it. Like you said, everything is kind of like an educated guess, right? Mm-hmm. And if you do overdo it, no reason to panic. Just understand that, make sure you get your proper sleep in, make sure you get your nutrition, get your hydration, and obviously give yourself rest, right? It's better to do a one step back and then take 2 steps forward, right? So even though you might have to miss a training session, right, but it doesn't make sense if you're not recovered enough to do that workout again, that to hurt yourself even more. What I say is, like, you're digging a hole that you just can't recover from. So we saw the graph, we start here and you're going down. If you just keep going down, you're not going to recover, right? So don't be afraid to make sure you give yourself proper recovery, or proper rest, I should say, right? And then understand that your body will not adapt without that proper recovery. That's why we're talking about this. Your body will not recover from it. You need to provide proper nutrition, you need to sleep, and low stress is a huge key thing. We didn't talk about it much, but understand stress is a really key thing in recovery. What can happen if you're under a high stress situation? When I mean stress, I mean like maybe you might be having financial stress, emotional stress, things like that. Training is a physical stress. All of that type of stress all goes into the same jar, right? And that can overflow, and that can affect your recovery. That can affect your hormonal system and not be able to allow it to recover in the process that it needs to, or delay that process. So low stress is also a key thing as well. So if you're having a hard time with your training, it might be because you're under a lot of stress, right? But also understand that people use training to relieve themselves of stress, but don't use workouts so much that you're causing too much stress, right? There's again, we talk about, there's a gray area. There's too much stress, there's too little stress. Find the happy medium. Right, kind of what we talked about: refuel, repair, rehydrate. That's kind of the 3 things you should take away from this. Right?
Yeah, I just want to add to the stress in regards to that. The refuel, repair, rehydrate, if you are not giving your body the appropriate amount of fuel, you're going to increase your cortisol in your body, which is the stress hormone.
Yep.
So you got to make sure that you're properly fueling your body as well. So that will contribute to those stress levels. And like you said, it is a fine line. Of some people use, exercise as a, release of stress. But if the workout is causing you stress, you need to change your plan.
Yeah, causing too much stress specifically. Yeah, and then we talked about Rhabdo a little bit. If at any time, just re-clarifying, if you're someone that you think you have Rhabdo, or if you hear someone that are giving the symptoms that we talked about, go to a hospital. Like, don't even question it. Just go to a hospital, right? Get yourself there, whatever means necessary, because you could cause permanent kidney damage, and you could potentially be a life-threatening thing if it's left untreated. So even if you're like, well, I might not, like, don't even question it. It's better to be safe than have kidney failure.
Yeah.
So that's one of the big things of overtraining. That's one of the symptoms that can happen if you overtrain. The big thing with Rhabdo too, I want to mention, especially if you're someone that's new to training, right? Let's say you go to a spin class, maybe you go to Burn Boot Camp, maybe you go to CrossFit. Understand, like, those kind of things are very generalized programming, and it may be too much for you going right in. So you might be seeing everyone else around you doing these workouts, and they seem to be doing fine, and you're struggling. Like, understand, look, those people might have been doing this for a while. They've kind of worked up to this. When you just hop right in like that, that can cause Rhabdo, because you're just going from 0 to 60 so fast, right? And that's why I wanted to talk about it, is like, the more you train, the less likely it's going to happen, because it takes more extreme measures. When you're a novice training, that's when you really want to make sure you identify what Rhabdo is, because if you're going from the couch to start training, that's kind of like the most viable time that Rhabdo could happen, because you're doing too much too fast. So yeah, especially as someone who's watching this video, if you're brand new to training, not trying to scare you from training, obviously, but just understand the symptoms that this could happen, and make sure, like, understand, like, this is a very serious thing, making sure. And what I tell people is, like, you'll know if you overtrain. Like, you just do not feel like yourself. You're not functioning, hence the word functional overreaching. If you don't feel like you can function the next day, you went too hard, right? So again, that's why the recovery is so, so important, so that you can stay in that functional recovery rather than the non-functional, or to the extreme measure, overtraining and getting Rhabdo. All right, and I think that is our last slide. Leah, is there anything else you wanted to cover?
No, but I just want to remind everybody, if you're watching this recording and you're like, well, you have some questions, please reach out to us. You can reach me on my Facebook profile, Leah Freund. Come join my Facebook group, Leah Freund Nutrition Coaching, or you can find me on Instagram at Leah_Marie_Freund, Freund. I'm always happy to help. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm not going to bite. I am happy to help. This is what I enjoy.
She's really nice, people. She's really nice.
And Ben, where can they reach out to you if they have any questions?
Yes. Yeah. So again, Charles Performance and Wellness is the main website you can go to. That has a link to my Facebook page, my Instagram, my Twitter, my LinkedIn. All that's on that website there. So you can use any of those methods to be able to reach out to me if you want to talk about training, workout structure. If you want a program and you want to train under me, I have an app that you can use where I can give you the workouts and provide video demonstration videos to everything. So it shows you exactly how to do the training. I give you your set and reps, your exercises, and I can make it specific for you. If you want personal training, or maybe you have a group of people and you want like a group fitness type thing, we can also do that as well. Whether it's strength and conditioning, or strength training, if you want to include conditioning. If an athlete is watching this and you want more athletic focused things, like I've had plenty of experience with athletes my entire career, from middle school all the way up to Division II. So if you want to learn how to get faster, jump higher, get stronger, be better conditioned for it, right? If you're someone who may be a freshman and you're trying to gain some muscle mass so you can get a little bit bigger, right? I can provide those programs for you as well, right? So don't be afraid to reach out to me at charlesperformanceandwellness.com. Cool. All right. Well, thank you very much for tuning in, and hopefully if you guys need anything, just don't feel free to reach out. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.